The expenditure heads of the Ministries of Economic Development and Investment Promotion were taken up for debate in Parliament today. The expenditure heads for both ministries were adopted without a vote being called.
Meanwhile, speaking during the debate, MP Sajid Premadasa expressed the following views on the right to information.
මේරටේ ජනතාවට තිබෙන පරම වගකීමක් මානව අයිතිවාසිකමක් තමයි.
A fundamental human right that the people of this country have is the right to information. The media in our country has a right to spread the truth.
රටට දියත් කරන්නට අපේ රටේ මාධ්‍යවලට අයිතියක් තියෙනවා. සමහර අවස්ථාවන් වලදී මට කතා කරන්න ඉඩ දෙන්න මහත්මයා. සමහර අවස්ථාවන් වලදී ඇතැම් මාධ්‍ය අපිවත් විවේචනය කරලා තිබෙනවා.
Let me speak. In some instances, certain media institutions have criticized us severely. But as politicians, we must have the ability to face this. The United National Party has always stood for the right to information. We have always fought to secure the right to information for public representatives and the citizens of this country. We cannot fight for the right to information on one hand and on the other hand suppress the media, hunt them and threaten them.
තොරතුරු දැනගැනීමේ අයිතිය මහජන මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ටත් මේ රටේ පුරවැසියන්ටත් ලබා දෙන්න. එක පැත්තකින් තොරතුරු දැනගැනීමේ අයිතිය වෙනුවෙන් සටන් කර තවත් පැත්තකින් මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනය කරන්නට මාධ්‍ය දඩයන යන්නට මාධ්‍යවලට තර්ජන ගර්ජන කරන්නට අපිට කිසිසේත්ම හැකියාවක් නැහැ. අද අපි දන්නවා
වැරදි අදහසක් දෙන්නේ මාධ්‍ය තර්ජනය ගර්ජනය කරලා ඒගොල්ලන් ඔක්කොම මට්ටු කරන්න දාන්නේ මංගල මහත්මයා. උසාවියට දීලා තියෙන මංගල මහත්මයා.
ගරු මූලාසනාරූඪ මන්ත්‍රීතුමනි මම ප්‍රකාශ කරේ එක පැත්තකින් අපි සටන් වදිනවා. ඇත්ත දැනගැනීමේ තොරතුරු දැනගැනීමේ අයිතිය දිනා.
Honorable Chair, what I was saying is that on the one hand we are fighting to win the right to information. And on the other hand, various individuals are hunting the media. We saw how the Sirasa Media Network was burnt down. Who set it ablaze? Today, cases have been filed against the Sirasa Media Network. I see this as serious suppression of the media.
Sirasa මාධ්‍ය ජාලය ගිනිපත් කරා. අද වෙන විට Sirasa මාධ්‍ය ජාලයට අද නඩු වැටිලා තිනවා. අන්න ඒක මම දකිනවා මහා බරපතල මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනයක් හැටියට.
Well, now views were expressed at a media briefing convened by the United National Party regarding Indian Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's visit to Sri Lanka.
Yes, Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian P. Ariyanandan also commented on this topic in Parliament today.
Indian අගමැතිවරයා අර
We have a problem about the Indian Prime Minister who refused to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting visiting Jaffna. However, we emphasize that if this is happening with the President's consent, then we do not object to it. We object only if the President does not approve of the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Jaffna.
If he is visiting without government approval, then we believe it becomes a problem for the sovereignty of our country. If he visits without the President's approval and based on a request made by the Chief Minister, then it is a problem. It becomes a problem for the people of this country. We are against that. We are not voicing our objections, we are voicing our views.
The Chief Opposition Whip said in Parliament recently that the invitation extended by the Chief Minister of the Northern Province to the Indian Prime Minister cannot be accepted. He said that an invitation can be extended to a head of state only by another head of state. It may be legally correct. The United National Party should keep in mind that during its regime and until the time of the current regime, it did not give any rights to the Tamil people. During the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, Chief Minister Vigneswaran invited the Indian Prime Minister to visit the country. I am disappointed that the UNP, which did not voice its opposition at that time, is voicing its opposition now. The Tamil National Alliance condemns the devious schemes of the UNP.
You're watching the news at 9. Up next is Action TV.
The Chief Minister of the North Central Province put a stop to the sale of lottery tickets through students undertaken by the North Central Province Ministry of Education on the 3rd of November with 8 days to go for the draw. On the 26th of October, the official who was functioning as the acting secretary to the Provincial Ministry of Education clarified the reason for undertaking such a lottery to Action TV.
Many children suffer from poverty. They ask our assistance to send them to school and to provide scholarships. There are children who do sports at national level and they are required to travel overseas sometimes for tournaments. Assistance is sought from the ministry for these purposes too. These are poor children. There is no other way to help these children.
The fact that students were being made to sell lottery tickets to raise funds for education and related activities in the province makes it evident that the North Central Provincial Council is suffering from a shortage of funds. However, about 3 months prior to the lottery program, public funds were being allocated for a visit abroad to Thailand and South Korea to be undertaken by 45 provincial councillors and senior public officials in the province. The Chief Secretary of the province acted as the chairman of the committee responsible for purchasing the air tickets. An individual who had retired from the public service by this time was also included in the committee. This official, who was instrumental in initiating the controversial lottery which was put a stop to by the Chief Minister, was also among the members of the committee. This official functioned as the primary organizer of this overseas trip while he was the secretary of the Provincial Council. The travel agency selected by the committee, headed by the Chief Secretary of the province, to purchase the air tickets incidentally belongs to an individual who served as a councillor on the previous Provincial Council. On the 28th of June, the Chief Secretariat paid out a cheque of 12.1 million rupees to the Provincial Council Secretariat and instructed them that a 60% advance was to be paid to the travel agent for the air tickets. On the 28th of June, the Provincial Council Secretariat paid a sum of 7,921,800 rupees to the travel agency as an advance for the air tickets. On the 12th of July, the Presidential Secretariat informed the Secretary, the Governor of the North Central Province, that approval had not been granted for this overseas trip. This was informed to the Secretary to the Governor in response to a letter he addressed to the Presidential Secretariat on the 2nd of July. This shows that the Provincial Council Secretariat has paid out an amount close to 8 million rupees to the travel agency as an advance for air tickets prior to obtaining approval for the overseas trip from the Presidential Secretariat. A situation has arisen now, whereas per the conditions agreed upon by the committee headed by the Chief Secretary of the province and the travel agency, the 8 million rupees paid as an advance will not be reimbursed. Is the Chief Secretary of the province vested with the power to put up public funds as collateral and reach agreements with private companies? Who gave the Provincial Council Secretary the power to pay out an advance that would not be reimbursed prior to obtaining approval from the only authority that can grant approval? Secretary to the President, this is over to you.
Welcome back to the news.
Yes, now 9 suspects connected to the murder of a youth inside a hotel in Athurugiria have been remanded until Monday.
Yes, this was when the case pertaining to the murder was taken up today at the Kadwala Magistrates Court.
Nine suspects connected to the murder of a youth inside a hotel in Athurugiria have been remanded until Monday.
This was when the case pertaining to the murder was taken up today at the Kadwala Magistrates Court.
The police say that among the suspects produced in court today was an employee of parliamentarian Duminda Silva. A 22-year-old individual who was a resident of Valikara was killed in a dispute that arose between a group that had entered the hotel in Athurugiria and the security guard at the hotel on Monday.
According to the police, the youth was murdered with sharp weapons and poles.
And now it's time for the newspaper cartoon of the day.
And now tonight on Words of Wisdom, we take a look at the sayings of the famous English multidisciplinary academic Thomas Huxley.
Economy does not lie in sparing money, but in spending it wisely. Thomas Huxley.
In business news, economic analysts point out that Sri Lanka's hub strategy will not become a reality if policies to improve exports are not actively implemented.
That's right. The problem of Sri Lanka's exports not growing with global competition was discussed yesterday at a conference held in Colombo.
The conference, titled Diversifying and Expanding Export Services and Goods Beyond Conventional Thinking, organized by the Pathfinder Foundation, was held at the BMICH yesterday.
We are talking about our growth strategy doesn't depend on exports. The Mahinda Chintana, or the development policy framework, it emphasizes the importance of exports, but it doesn't actually say exports is the driving force. But we need to think, when we talk about shipping, aviation, logistics, I associate this with the outdated concepts in our mind that we still think of exports as goods, we still think of exports as physical transformation, we still think of export promotion as local content. But if we move this into look at exports from a different perspective, maybe we will notice that this hub strategy will really not work without exports and export-oriented FDI.
So concept of a maritime hub, in my view, is a very rational and a valid development initiative which creates immense potential for Sri Lanka to exploit in the export of value-added services and goods both. It needs to be looked from a holistic perspective and a multi-sectoral perspective. It is not just cargo or logistics or ports, it's a gamut of lot of works. We need to go into all the areas. Infrastructure development is important, but not enough. Overall capacity needs to be developed across the sectors. Efficiency and productivity will be the key for global competition and sustenance. If we can't achieve efficiency and productivity in these sectors, well, then the investment is going to be a waste of money. It's not going to provide anything.
Welcome back. France-based NGO Action Against Hunger has launched a report on the killing of 17 aid workers in Muthul in 2006.
Yes, entitled The Truth About the Assassination of 17 Humanitarian Aid Workers in Sri Lanka, the report unveils that according to the information ACF holds, the aid workers were assassinated by members of the Sri Lankan security forces and the criminals were covered up by top authorities.
Mike Penrose, Executive Director of ACF France, said in a statement posted on the organization's website that it is paramount that those who do not respect humanitarian aid workers are brought to justice and that these crimes do not go unpunished. The statement reads further that Action Against Hunger does not seek to be or to replace a judge, and that up until now, the organization's position was to wait for the outcome of the official investigation. ACF notes further, now that the relevant domestic mechanisms have been exhausted, witnesses have been silenced and the internal Sri Lankan investigation has become a farce, ACF considers it has a moral duty to denounce publicly the perpetrators of this crime. ACF calls on the international community to consider seriously the arguments presented in the report and to end the impunity by conducting an independent international investigation into the killings. The BBC reported that a Sri Lankan military spokesman rejected ACF's allegations, suggesting the charity had withheld evidence. Army media spokesperson Brigadier Ruwan Wanigasurya had told the BBC that withholding alleged evidence instead of releasing it in support of the government's investigation raised suspicion about the group's motives. The BBC quoted Brigadier Wanigasurya as saying, "This is another instance of a pattern which has emerged since the end of the conflict where certain organizations level allegations against the government without providing sufficient details to enable an investigation."
Now, going back to some local news, the Consumer Affairs Authority, which raided a milk powder storage facility in Valisara, seized stocks of milk powder and expired milk powder. Officers of the authority had discovered 12,000 kilograms of milk powder during the raid that was carried out based on a tip-off.
Yes, so that's right. The authority states that these stocks of milk powder were not released to the market at a time when there is a milk powder shortage. Also, according to the Consumer Affairs Authority, it was revealed that 2,880 packs unsuitable for consumption were also found, while attempts are being made to release these cheese to the market after changing the date of manufacture.
And with that, we bring a wrap for this edition of Newsfirst Primetime News. I'm Madhushka Balasurya.
And I'm Minoshi Ratnasekara. It's a pleasure having you with us. Take care. Good night.